Welcome to the Dawn Jarvis Show with Dawn Jarvis, the diverse nurse. And in this podcast, we will be talking about healthcare, self-care, diversity, careers, and well-being from a Black woman's perspective. We're really happy that you're here. So if you're ready, let's get on with the show.
Right, welcome Becky. Welcome to the Dawn Jarvis Show and the Diverse Nurse Network. It's really good to see you. I'm going to read out your introduction. Becky Walsh is a one-woman radical reinvention of personal development, daring to disrupt the normal view of how we see coaching or therapy. Becky's hilarious stand-up show is never the same twice. She's been turning the dry world of self-development on its head with a down-to-earth and uniquely funny style for 20 years. She shows people how to step into their power without making it cringe-making. Welcome, Becky. That's amazing. Tell us a bit more about that.
So I sort of have always done personal development training that's been a little bit funny. And I mean, you know, funny, haha, not peculiar, although some may argue with that. And during lockdown, I got hired by the SLCC to run quite a few series of webinars. And one of the attendees of the webinars, because I can teach a whole range of different stuff. So they'd sort of say, oh, can you teach this? I'd be like, yeah, I can teach that. Yeah, I can teach that, which was great. Within this, one of the attendees of the webinar said, actually, I have no interest in this subject. This is right at the end. I've got no interest in the subject. She said, the only reason I'm on this webinar, she said, I've discovered that after you've done a webinar for about 3 days after, I feel good. Oh. And we all started to really talk a bit about what was coming up and what the struggles were while we were going through the lockdown period, because it was quite new at that time for everybody. And so there's me teaching these webinars on emotional resilience. I mean, all sorts of different subjects, including how to use Canva, you know, all sorts of different things. And, you know, not so much personal development, more practical development with Canva. And I started to realize that what it was not so much what I was teaching, but the energy in the voice, the positive intent, and the absolute belief that all the people I was speaking to were great. They were great, you know. And by doing so, I also was bringing in huge amounts of humour. And it's very hard when you can't see the attendees, you don't know if they're laughing, you can't hear them. But I would just keep bringing out the humour. And then at the end, people would go, oh my God, I haven't laughed since the start of lockdown. This has really made me happy and blah, blah, blah. And so I thought, right, well, I've always been funny, and I've done this unique stand-up show that was kind of like intuitive improv readings on the audience and mixing that with comedy. And I just thought, you know what? I'm going to turn this on its head, and I'm going to do stand-up that teaches personal development, because I think it's all got a bit dull and boring. I know that we've got to talk about mental health. I know it's really important. I think it's really wonderful that we're talking about mental health. But God, do we have to be so sincere about it? Because if you didn't have a problem, you're going to think you've got a problem by the end of it, just on the fact that you're going to start looking for it. It's kind of like this sort of like an element with it that you go, well, I was fine until you started talking about symptoms, and I started looking at them, and I've got a ton of them. I must be mentally ill. But you were all right. Problems. It's a little bit like doing anything online. You just die. You know, you've got your thumb's gone blue because you bashed it, and now you're looking online, and before you know it, you've got sepsis and you're dying. So I don't know. So that's why I do what I do. I feel really passionate about bringing a little bit of light into a dark subject.
And I think it's a lovely way to talk about it, isn't it? And it's an interesting way to introduce the subject without being all worthy about it. Because I think if you were going to do a course around, we're going to do personal development, and mental health, you'd be like, oh, do I really want to go to this? Do I really want to do it? You know, I'm all right, actually. I'm fine. I'm okay. I don't need this. But if you do it in a different way and sort of like, you know, introduce the humour of it, I think people can relate to that. I know I definitely can. So it's an interesting way to do it. And also, I really like what you said about, you know, the attendees you almost think about it in a different way. And I really like the power of comedy to teach and to change opinion and to make you think, and also the way to heal as well. What do you think about that?
Exactly that. I did one called Mental Health in Leadership, so all about like how leaders find it difficult, blah, blah, blah. And lots of the attendees said afterwards, I was really dreading this and I just had a great time. And I just think, why can't personal development be about a great time? And there was a certain stage, and there's a real interruption that happens in negative thinking that comedy is really, really good at. And whilst we're buying into titles, what happened here? Because it used to be that you would have feelings of anxiety. I say, I'm feeling a bit anxious about this. And then suddenly the wording changed to, I have anxiety. What? What, did you suddenly catch it from something? Get it off the bottom of your shoe. What do you mean you have anxiety? Put it down. It's like, how do we have anxiety? You're feeling anxiety. And one thing that we know about feelings is we move through them. Now, I do get it that there's certain levels of chronic anxiety, which is like a panic alarm being stuck on all of the time. I get that. However, if you start with a narrative saying, I have anxiety, you're more likely to allow that panic alarm to stick on, because suddenly you've gone from having a feeling to a condition. And of course, a condition, I get excited about certain words, condition. And so when you just suddenly got like a condition, then there's that, isn't it? Then, I know, let's add another word. Chronic condition. It's a chronic condition. Suddenly it's got weight to it, it's got importance behind it, it's got emphasis behind it, and then it becomes your identity. Now you are a person of chronic anxiety condition, and now that is who you are. And you can hear it when people kind of start talking about themselves, and they'll say, hi, I'm Janet, I've got a chronic anxiety. I've only just met you, love. Have you got any cake?
Oh my gosh, that is so true. That is so true. There's I haven't got the reference, academic readers or listeners, like learnt helplessness, and it's sort of like the identity around. They talk about it sort of like in hospitals. In a sort of like very traditional sense with beds, and that when you go to hospital you have to put pajamas on, and then you go into this sort of sick role, and then you sort of like, it actually stops you getting better because you're like, I'm in bed, I'm in hospital, aren't I? And it's sort of like, it's very well known that you have to treat it like a sort of like a normal experience. It's just, the chronic condition you talk about is just part of your life, and it has to be managed. And so it's sort of got a continuing care of of that. But you're absolutely right, it's sort of like a mindset thing. And I think the power of managing potential continuing illnesses or continuing health issues is that it's part of your life, it doesn't define you. And I think, I love that, actually. That's really good. It's really good. And sort of like to turn that around. So there's lots of I know you do this with management teams and things like that in organisations, in public sector organisations, but there's probably a role to do that with patients. And even the word patients is an issue. We're encouraged, or to say like clients or service users rather than patients, because the word patients means that you're in hospital and that you're ill. So, and that you don't necessarily need to be, do you? So that's really, really good. I really like that. And do you find doing it online? I mean, we're doing this online, and we've never met, actually, have we? But we know each other quite well. Do you think doing it online makes a difference?
Yeah, I think it can do. I think that we feel that we need to be more gentle online, because something could happen and that connection be severed, so like your internet drops out or whatever, and you can be in the part of a process with somebody and the internet drops out, and it could be at a fundamental point, and you're like, because you don't want to leave that person in that place, because when you're moving an energy through, or you're moving a thought through, or you're in a transition point. And so I think that online you're more gentle than perhaps you would be when you've got a face-to-face client that just can't suddenly pop out of the room, because and I've had to adapt with my clients. I mean, like I said, I've been doing this 20 years. I've had to adapt from the in-person stuff. And in some ways I like it, because what happens is you're with a client for an hour, and then they can take 20 minutes to put on their coat, and so then the consultation continues another 20 minutes, whereas at the end of a Zoom call it's kind of like bye.
Can I just say that is an etiquette thing for me. I sort of like, we have this really competitive thing about who can end the call first. It's like really weird. So do you know what I mean? It's like yeah.
And then I think that there was something that you said before that kind of came into all of this about sort of mindset and the way that we think about things. And, reverse psychology works really well in this way, that our mindsets can have this sort of idea of, it might be, I've got this kind of condition, or this is really bad, or I'm suffering from this, or, I'm depressed, or I've got anxiety, or whatever it is. Or it could just be the feelings of not being good enough, which we're hardwired for in order to be able to fit into a tribe. We're all hardwired to not feel good enough. And yet there's this mindset of self-love. You must feel good enough. Well, actually, it fluctuates. And so when we have feelings of low self-esteem, we go, there's something wrong with me. I shouldn't have feelings of low self-esteem. I should think that I'm just wonderful, jazz hands, all of the time. And so then we start to link, and we worry about the fact that we've got low self-esteem. Then we worry about the fact that will make us unlovable. And then eventually no one will want us. And then we will die with our music still inside of us because we didn't make anything of our lives smelling of cat's wee when we don't even own a cat. We have these links with shame. And one of the things about comedy, and one of the things that my clients have said is, your voice is still in my head, but they say it in a nice way. So that when comedy disrupts a thought, either through reverse psychology or through something else, just something that you laugh at, what we're doing is we're laughing at the subpersonality. So the links in the chain is never being caused by you, because you are the thinker of your thoughts. But the subpersonalities, or I like to call them protectors, are the parts of ourselves that are, protecting our vulnerabilities. And some other people call that inner child when we're looking at archetypes. But they're protecting our vulnerabilities. So it might be, I can't believe she did that, I'm really angry about this, blah, 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 controller. Or it could be critic, which is, oh, I don't like the way that they chew yogurt, what's wrong with them? But that's the externalization. The internalization of the critic can also be quite dangerous, like, you're stupid, you'll never amount to much, what's wrong with you? Why can't you do it? You're procrastinating again. I don't know why they have to have an accent, but they do. And so having some comedy that pokes fun at those aspects of ourselves stops that link in the chain from actually creating. So sometimes I even use reverse psychology with clients. I had a woman who came to see me, and you might have heard this before, when somebody says, I've been to see this person, this person, this person, this person, you kind of get, I've had Reiki, I've gone and seen a psychiatrist, I've seen a therapist, I've had shiatsu, I've had da-da-da, I've had da-da-da, I've had da-da-da, and you are my last chance. And you think, oh God, because the one person who hasn't been engaged is you, because you're not ready to shift or change. And I remember saying to this person, oh, I think you're completely, and I use the F-bomb, how dare you? I'm not completely, if I was, then I wouldn't be here. And then she listed all of the ways in which she could fix her own life. And then when she finished listening, she went, you clever little cow.
Yeah, you're a witch.
She always knew what she needed to do.
That's really interesting, because I think so I was going to ask you, do you think, do you think everyone can laugh at themselves, or do you think that has to be drawn out? Because that example is, sort of somebody came to you thinking they tried everything, feeling a bit holier than thou because of that, almost a professional patient, and then you then said, oh, I can't help you then, and sort of like made it funny, and then they were like, oh, actually, I'm this, I'm that, and then, as you said, sort of like, then they found that inner power. So, and I suppose that's what coaching is, isn't it, really, sort of like helping people to help themselves. But do you think, I suppose, do they have to be coachable? And I suppose with the comedy, you're doing that with people who aren't necessarily coming to you to sort of like sort their mental health out, or to be personally developed, but that is a sort of byproduct of it. So that, and that's what I like about the power of comedy. You're not going there to be educated, you're going there to be entertained. It's a bit like the BBC thing, isn't it, to sort of educate and, you know, entertain, and what, there's three things, I can't remember the third thing, but you know, it's all part of the package, isn't it? EastEnders is also a commentary on, you know, life in Britain or something like that. So you're there to learn as well, or that's a byproduct. I actually don't know what I'm saying, but you know what I mean.
I know what he's saying. Now I can sound like EastEnders. I know what he's saying. I think EastEnders just makes me think that the whole of humanity is just gnarly. But,
yes.
but you're actually right, because characterization, you know, things like EastEnders, all of them are archetypally based, every single character. Not one of those characters, in a sense, in any soap opera is coming from a balanced part of themselves. You know, it's very, very rare, because there's no drama when we're coming from our archetypes. Archetypes love a bit of drama, so those things are there. And I think, to answer the question about whether or not everybody can laugh at themselves, I don't think everybody can. But interestingly enough, I think when you get someone who really is dour-faced and really in a stuck place, you know, when we talked about how something becomes part of your character, we see this, you know, where you go, oh, old Mr. So-and-so, oh, miserable git who loves at number 54, or Mrs. Such and Such, she's a bit of a gossip, da-da-da-da-da. What we're saying here is when unresolved archetypes have got stuck and they've then become characters, they've become actual characters, and then we say a person is like that. So we might sort of say, like your next door neighbour who always needs their car parked outside of their own front door, even though they live on the street, and we can all park where we want. And they curtain twitch until it's placed there, and then they go move their car. Yes. What happened to that person in terms of trust? That is someone who is suffering from huge limiting beliefs around trust, so much so that they feel victimized, that something's going to happen to their car unless their car, and so they're destroying the quality of their own life, worrying more about their car than they actually are sitting at home having a lovely time. They're just curtain twitching for their car. So you might go, oh, neurotic, da-da-da. Well, what happened? Because that's some kind of trauma that has ended up becoming part of their identity. And I think that humour, I think humour really has the opportunity to shift that. Yeah. So, for example, if you had a neighbour like that and they always put a cone out so that nobody could park in front of their house, and then see if it
do you live next door to me? You're describing my life.
It's just sorry if you're that cone person.
The car parking walls outside my road. We've never met. How is it possible?
She's the cone woman. So imagine if you invited that person to a party and you said, oh, you know, I'm having a bit of a garden party, please come over, you know, bring the cone optional. They would probably laugh at that, because you know what I mean? They would laugh at that. You know, it's just... And
Would you?
We're so scared, aren't we, to be able to kind of just to joyfully poke fun. But I love it when people pay me to do it. It's so hard.
That's amazing. I might have to do that. I might have to next door. That would be brilliant. That would be brilliant. But some people would take that totally the wrong way, wouldn't they?
No, and I mean, I think that is the difficult that is the difficult thing, isn't it? But we've become very fearful of offence, that we've lost the flirt.
Yeah.
You know, because life is about flirtation, and in some ways that flirtation, that kind of like that joyful sort of banter that you have with people, has, you know, and I think that's what we miss when we've all kind of gone working from home. And it was one of the things that kind of like came up on the webinar. A lovely lady sort of like shared, she said, I don't know who I am anymore because I'm working from home. She said, but nothing's changed. I'm still doing everything the same. She said, but so I don't understand why I don't know who I am anymore. And I said, well, you know, identity, especially if you're going into work, and I don't care where you work, office, theatre, wherever, but it's the little things, isn't it? It's the fact that, you know, Sandra, who's on Tinder, she really shouldn't be there. She's a pretty girl. But we end up hearing Sandra going, I can't believe what happened with this guy last night, blah, blah, blah. And we end up as an older woman coaching Sandra on her love life. That's now my identity. I am the coach to Sandra's epic Tinder problem. And then there'll be somebody else who I kind of have a little flirt with. He's too young for me, but he's got a cute bum.
I think
so I'll have a little flirt with him. Is what?
I think you should lean into it. I think.
And that's it. There's the barista who I always tip with a wink. There's all of that, but it's the identities of who we are when we're out in the world that we lost when it kind of came to this. And it really made me think more of humour and how humour is a disruptor of negative thought patterns, that we can't create links in a chain when we giggle at ourselves, and that the disruptor who is taking life so seriously can just be cracked open by just being able to reflect in an instant on their behaviour and have a bit of a giggle about it and put the comb back on their head. And to me, the realization of that and the realization of the fact that I need that, and I need that comedy and I need that fun, made me think, let's actually turn this into a show. So I've got the snotty inner child, which is all talking about our inner child, because we're both on Clubhouse.
Yes.
And I hear a lot when I go into rooms on Clubhouse, and it's really funny that someone starts a sentence with, it's so important that we hydrate, that we do this, that we do that. But sometimes by the end of being into some of these rooms, I feel like I'm less than. And any of you that has ever gone to see, like if you've seen a TED talk, if you've gone and seen anything that's supposed to be inspirational, it just inspires you to feel a bit shit. It doesn't necessarily inspire you to feel like, oh, I'm amazing. No, It's just aspiration. This is what you're not. This is what you're not. This is what you're not. And another thing about what you're not. Oh, are you eating enough green leafy vegetables? Are you exercising twice a day? Sometimes I listen to these people's freaking morning routine and I think that'll take me all day. What time do you get up? And when we're stuck with this kind of like idea of being less than and the inspiration to eat healthy, exercise, do this thing, do that thing, the health benefits of laughter, how it strengthens the immune system, how it's an anti-inflammatory, how kindness is so great for the heart, the fact that you can kindly have a joke with somebody, in the interaction of kindness and humour and joy. To be honest with you, I am old enough to know that people I have seen who drink and smoke and who live really unhealthy lifestyles outlive the person who was eating all organic, who was really fit, who looked after their body, who ended up with different cancers because they were miserable and stressed out about not doing enough of the right things for themselves. Whereas I don't know what she's doing that for, kind of still, this isn't an advert for smoking. It does not extend your life. But what I am saying is
smoke more.
Drink more. Care less. They say that you kind of one glass of red wine can be good for you. It's got nothing to do with the red wine. It's got to do with the fact that you're more likely to be a person who has very little F's in your bag of F's.
Yeah.
So the more joy you can find in life, then the more immune system is going to be boosted. And you can drink as many green smoothies as you like, but if you're a miserable bugger drinking them, then how is that going to serve the purpose? Yeah. I think this is great. Somebody's always gone to see somebody. They're usually, some kind of Buddha, or they're some kind of African American or somebody. So I don't know where they went, but they went and saw somebody wise, and they said, I can't stop smoking. I'm really, really worried about it. I'm so worried about it. It's probably the Dalai Lama. And they said, well, don't do both, because both will definitely kill you. Choose one, worry or smoke.
Yeah, I think that's true, because if you don't worry about it, my granddad smoked from he was 10 until the day he died when he was at 81, and he was fine. But he was happy. Do you know what I mean? He was living his life, living his best life, literally. Do you know what I mean? So, it is about the attitude. And if, he was very laid back and didn't worry about, we all worried about lots of things, but he didn't worry about anything. So, that is so true. It's an attitude, isn't it? And the joy. And I really like sort of being anxious makes you ill, makes you more anxious, and takes the joy out of life. I really like the thing about the joy. So tell us about your your stand-up show? I know you've got one planned.
Yeah, so Western-super-Mare, I have one planned for the 10th of September, and I'm going to keep doing these. They're going to be a selection of 6 because I like brutalising myself. Yeah, I'm happy about it. It's good. So the first one's called The Snotty Inner Child, because when I did my inner child work, and it sounds lovely, doesn't it, doing inner child work? You imagine that it's all about drawing pictures, eating ice cream and kind of nice shit. And when I did my inner child work, I discovered that I absolutely had a huge sense of loathing for my inner child. Lank, greasy hair, snot coming down her nose, looked like the child from Les Mis. And I just absolutely, my family were very much about not accepting weakness, of the stop crying, otherwise I'll give you something to cry about generation in the 70s, which we pretty much were all like that.
We're all like that.
All like that.
We're all hard.
What didn't do me no harm, shut up. Clout off the back of the head. So I think when I discovered her and I didn't like her, I found it very hard to bring this snivelling little wretched thing into a place of love. And of course you have to love all aspects of yourself in order to be able to love yourself. And so I did some work on seeing her in a different way as a chihuahua. So from that, I decided to write a whole comedy routine about Barbies and all sorts of stuff about seriously being
loving this
child. So that's The Snotty Inner Child, and then I've got the shitty critic, so all about the inner critic, and then the crunty control freak, and so I'm creating these characters that I hope that people will, I say I hope they resonate with them, I hope they don't, but I hope that they resonate with their own voices, because until we can hear our voices as being separate entities to our observer, they can control our lives. But when you can hear them, you step back from them and you go, oh, twat. So you just kind of have this sort of idea of kind of going, what you're being like. And by being able to be like that, you can create a disrupt in your own life. So hopefully there's a bit of education that's kind of coming in with the comedy. And like you say, there's lots of people that would not be seen dead laid on a psychiatrist's chaise longue. And unfortunately, we have a really high percentage of people who take their own lives, especially men. Yeah. So I'll come to you. I'll come to you. You stay in the pub. I'll come to you, and then we can create seeds of thought, of positive thought. Not this is what's wrong with you, because that's what I think is wrong with a lot of self-development. But seeds of positive thought about things that you can do to think differently, to get you out of locked cycles of thinking, so that you can laugh at yourself, so that you can find a light that gets you through. Now, I know people are going to say, well, not all depressed people go into pubs and not all anxious people are going to be going into pubs, but let's just try. Instead of it being in this very clinical, dark, difficult, for any of us that did come from the 70s, we were taught that vulnerability is weakness. And it's very easy to say to somebody, oh, you need to learn to be more vulnerable, you need to open up to that. But maybe there's a different way. Maybe we don't have to ask everyone to be vulnerable. Maybe what we need to do is also say, lighten up. Like, let's find ways of being able to laugh at some of these things so that we can feel a little bit more empowered to actually go and seek help, to actually go and seek. Because I know that this is a door. This isn't therapy. This is a doorway to thinking differently. And from that doorway, then you might kind of go, actually, I can see where my problem is now. Now I know how to fix it. When we don't know what the problem is, we don't know how to fix it. And so if you can teach someone where this is through comedy, then they're more likely to walk through a door into therapy. And that's what excites me. So I don't think that I've got the answer to cure depression or suicide or anything like that. I think I'm part of a greater solution. I think comedy, humour, laughter, and its effects on our immune system and our effects on our mental and emotional well-being is part of a bigger answer. And it is an answer for people who definitely would not be seen dead on the chaise longue.
That's amazing. That's really, no, I'm serious. From a health point of view, I used to commission health services, and it's around accessibility. And there have been a lot of research studies around we need to go to where people are. And I was really struck by what you said around, not everyone who's depressed will go to a comedy club or to a pub, but some will, and there'll be some people who are drawn to those places, and it's a place they go. So they might not go to community hall, they might not go to see a psychiatrist, as you said, and they might even go to their doctor, but they might go to a comedy club. And I know from personal experience that comedy has brought life into my life in some dark times. So I really like that, and I actually think you could sell that as therapy around that. So I think that's absolutely amazing, and a really good way to look at it, and the way to look at health and well-being in the round, actually, and the different ways that we can, support ourselves with our health and well-being. It doesn't have to be a tablet. It doesn't, it is, it doesn't, eating your greens is obviously brilliant, but also looking after your soul and your well-being is also very important too. So I love that. So when are you doing your next stand-up show? I mean, this is obviously going to be on the internet forever, but
I'm based in Western-super-Mare, but will travel anywhere for the right amount of cash and cake. But I'm and a lot of stuff you can do online. So Western-super-Mare, the Stable Games Room on the 10th of September at 7:30. So that's where I'm going to be, and it's a completely free event while I'm just kind of getting used to this material. So there's going to be a series of 6 shows that's kind of going to take people through a journey, but they'll kind of like pop up here and there. So that'll be quite an exciting thing to do. And just on the point that you said there, and I'm sure you probably know this, did you know? Well, yeah, you would know, but just to say to everybody who's listening, that in the UK there are traces of antidepressants in the water that we drink.
Yes, I did know that. That's unfortunate. I know.
So anything that can help people get off that level of medication is a good thing, because it's a really good thing.
And is there somewhere a course or anything that you run that you'd like the listeners to know about?
Yeah, so I teach a lot on intuition. So I've got a free course on intuition on my website, which is beckywalsh.com. So this is kind of came from my book, You Do Know, Learning to Act on Intuition Instantly, because a lot of it is about reading the room as well when you're a comedian. So you need to have that kind of like level of intuition too. That's cool. So I'm doing that. And then I have a ton of kind of online courses and things. So if you just go to beckywalsh.com, you'll be able to see, you can sign up to the mailing list so that you can see where I'm playing. You can invite me to come and work with you or your colleagues. And I also see one-to-one clients as well. So lots of different ways in which I'm interactable, including a YouTube channel and all sorts of stuff going on. And we're both in Clubhouse. So we are both in Clubhouse.
So I'd recommend that. And I have experienced Becky's comedy, and it is absolutely wonderful. And all the links to where you can get in contact with Becky will be in the show notes, either on YouTube or on the podcast notes as well. Becky, it's been an absolute pleasure, and you've actually made my morning and made me smile. So I'm grinning, so the endorphins, everything's going, so that's really good. And thank you so much for your time. And I know that we will be seeing each other again, but and just thank you so much for being on the show, and perhaps we'll catch up in a few months and see how you're doing, because I'd like to know how the series went, how the characters went, how it all played out, and so the success in your business as well. So thank you very much for being on the show.
Thank you for having me. That's what I've got to say. Thank you for having me.
Okay.
Thank you for listening to the Dawn Jarvis Show. If you enjoyed this episode, there are 2 things you can do. Number 1, leave me a rating and a review on Apple Podcasts. It would mean so much to me if you took a moment out of your time to post your thoughts on the show. It will help me reach so many more people and help them with their well-being. Number 2, subscribe to my email list, the Diverse Nurse Digest, using the link in the show notes. Until the next time, thank you and goodbye.